here it is. It's called Canada Strong, Budget 2025. You can see all the tabs I've made. There's a lot in this, Rosie, including a big jump in the deficit. Let's start by walking through the numbers. The big number is the deficit this year. It is $78.3 billion. Now, that's not the $100 billion some people projected, but that's a heck of a lot higher than people are used to seeing in a non-COVID year, and it stays at an elevated rate in all the years after this, going out until 2030. You can see the $78.3 billion this year. It's going to be $65.4 billion next year, $63.5 billion the year after that.
Deficit.
Just shy of $58 billion and just shy of $57 billion by 2029, 2030. Broadly, Rosie, in this year, in the next couple of years, the deficit is twice as high as we would have seen in the fall economic statement that Chrystia Freeland tabled in December, and growth is half of what was projected just 9-10 months ago. Now, you're at that deficit despite there being some significant cuts and downsizing in the size of the public service. There is going to be a net overall reduction in the size of the public service of nearly 10%. In this year alone, you're looking at 16,000 full-time equivalent jobs being eliminated, and that will go to about just shy of 40,000 jobs being eliminated by 2028, 2029.
That's
in effect, what's happening is the civil
cuts.
service is being right-sized, to use the government's phrase, from its high of 368,000 people in 2023-24 to about 330,000 in 2028, 2029. That's the spend less so you can invest more. And on that, there is a series of investments in capital in particular. $115 billion towards infrastructure, $110 billion in productivity and competitiveness. That includes some tax incentives to get people to invest in equipment and in buildings. $30 billion in defense, just in capital in defense, Rosemary. There's a total of about $80 to $90 billion in defense over the next 5 years, a historic level of spending there, and $25 billion in home building. This is mostly the Canada Homes announcement that was made a few weeks back. To give you a sense of what is shifting here, program expenses normally grown by 8% a year is now growing by less than 1% a year. And this budget is shifting to capital. They're also going to try to bring down the population of the country by reducing the immigration targets. Permanent residents down from 395,000 to 380,000. But look at temporary residents.
That's a big cut on temporary residents.
This is temporary foreign workers. A massive reduction.
50%
673,000 down to 385,000. And one last thing to highlight, Rosie, and we can go through any of these measures as you so choose. And this is the climate competitiveness strategy. The emissions cap, it's on the books to be scrapped. It's essentially, there's a couple of conditions that need to be met. They need to finalize the methane emissions reductions. They need to deal with the industrial price becoming the core of the plan, an agreement on a beefed up and strengthened industrial carbon price that then becomes the engine that drives down emissions as you move towards that 2050 net zero target. But some investments in carbon capture, some agreements on methane targets, and a move to an industrial price away from a regulatory system, you're going to see the emissions cap, which the oil and gas sector, the premiers of Alberta, Newfoundland and Labrador, and Saskatchewan have vigorously complained about over the years, that is going to go if everybody agrees to other methods that allows them to hit their climate targets of having net zero economy by the mid part of this century. So a 10% reduction in the civil service over the next number of years.
That's
billions of spending in capital and tax incentives, Rosie.
Jobs.
The government says this will unlock about $1 trillion in capital investment. This is what they say is the generational transformation of this budget. We'll see. Yeah. It depends on a lot of things going right, including the major projects agenda.
Okay, we are going to dip back into the finance minister in a moment as soon as you start speaking in English again. But let's just go through. I did want to just highlight this. I'm just catching up with where you've been all day. But there are social programs that the Prime Minister had promised would not be touched. And indeed, there are many things being protected. The Canada Child Benefit, the school food program, the disability benefit, old age security program, not surprisingly, $10 a day childcare being protected, workers benefit, the Canadian dental care plan also being protected. So some of those programs that were signature programs of the Trudeau government stick around.
But what's interesting is the shift in budgeting approach that's outlined here is going to make it very difficult to expand social programs that require the federal government to pay or the federal government to cost share, because they've adopted two new fiscal anchors in this budget. One is a declining deficit to GDP ratio over time, not debt to GDP ratio, Rosie, as we're used to in budgets, deficit to GDP ratio, but also that the operating side of the government ledger, direct program expenses, salaries, that is budgeted within 3 years. They'll keep spending and borrowing for capital investment, things that spur economic growth, but not for program expenses and salaries, which changes the whole thought process of the finance department and the cabinet, in that when you make a cabinet proposal to go in the budget now, it has to have a capital component and an economic spin-off component, unlocking private sector investment. Programs are going to be difficult to do without also cutting something else to pay for something new.
So they project that they're going to save $60 billion over 5 years by reviewing what is in departments.
So this is essentially the job issue. You got to go to page, I believe, 212 of the budget for those following along at home. You're looking at essentially, they've been doing this workforce renewal and what they call the CER process, which is the cost efficiency review. And that was defined essentially 15% in every department that could either be eliminated or reprofiled or moved to another department. And it's not going to be a straight across the board 15% everywhere. Some departments are going to get hit harder than others in these changes. But what's interesting, Rosie, is that with the workforce reduction, they say they can do a lot of it. The 16,000 full-time equivalents in this year, decline of about 40,000 between 2028 and 2029. There's going to be an early retirement incentive for people, 50 and up in different groups. This is too complicated and long to get into here, but essentially you'll be able to go take your pension early without penalty if you qualify and hit these targets. So this is a way they're looking at reducing the size of the civil service without direct layoffs.
Okay, let's thank you so much for that, David. We'll take a minute and listen a little bit to the Minister of Finance and come back.
Needed for Canada's future. We chose a different path, Mr. Speaker, a path that believes in Canada, a path that invests in our country's future, a path that reinforces Canadian values, a path that makes us less resilient on our trading partner, a path that allows us to be master in our own house, Mr. Speaker. We chose Canada.
Well, to bankrupt Canada is more like it.
And I hope every member of this House will choose Canada as well, Mr. Speaker. I hope they will all choose Canada, parce que nous voulons tous et toutes être maîtres chez nous d'abord, Monsieur le Président.
We all believe in Canada, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, when our steel, aluminum, forestry, auto, and agriculture industries were hit by U.S. tariff and trade disruptions, we did not stand by and wait for the storm to pass. We stepped in with the most comprehensive set of trade resilience measures in Canadian history, because this is who we are as Canadians, Mr. Speaker. This is who we are. When times get tough, we stand together, because we are Canadian. The government launched...
Oh, my goodness.
The government launched the Strategic Response Fund that my colleagues have been leading, allocating $5 billion to help sectors impacted by tariffs to adapt, to diversify, and to grow. Businesses can use the fund to invest in the design of new products, retool plans to boost productivity, or offset the cost of accessing new markets, because we want our industry to succeed. We want them to be able to make this pivot, Mr. Speaker, because we believe in our workers, we believe in our industry, we believe in our future, we believe in Canada.
But he's running us dry.
Nous avons également mis en place un programme de liquidité d'1 milliard.
We have also introduced a $1 billion liquidity relief package to help small and medium-sized businesses, because these businesses help our great country
Okay, that is a
grow,
little bit of the
and
finance minister delivering his speech to explain Budget 2025, which includes, yes, billions of dollars in spending, but also an attempt to rein in government spending by cutting 16,000 jobs in the public service this fiscal year. That's 4.5% of the workforce as of March 2025, and going up to a decline of about 40,000. 10%, I guess, from the peak at 2023-24. I'm going to bring in Sharon D'Souza. She's the National President of the Public Service Alliance of Canada. Nice to see you. Thank you for making the time. I know you're just sort of getting caught up here, and I'll bring David in because he's actually been reading it more than I have. As I am also getting caught up. But you were expecting cuts. Were you expecting numbers this big, 16,000 full-time positions?
Well, we were expecting cuts, and without a doubt, when the minister made the announcement that they're looking to go back to pre-pandemic numbers, when we looked at the juxtaposition, we're talking about 70,000 jobs. So we had an idea that there would be a cut.
Yeah.
But I truly believe that these cuts are drastic. I believe that there should have been more work done and consultation done before such an announcement is made.
It does sound as though there will be, according to David, an attempt to push people towards retirement, attrition. Packages, I guess, will be offered to people without penalty. Does that soften the blow in any way?
Not at all, because who can retire in this economy? Let's be really honest. People are having a difficult time making ends meet. And in some cases, especially smaller communities, these federal public sector jobs are what keeps this economy going.
David, any questions for Sharon?
Yeah, I mean, there's a line here in the budget that says this is a transformational time for the public service to revisit how we work, how we can improve services to Canadians, and how we can build for the future. A leaner public service is a more empowered and productive public service. The net size of the workforce by the end of this process, according to the government, by 2028, 2029, will be about 330,000 employees. So a reduction of about 40,000 from peak. You mentioned a 70,000 number. This is 40, so it's not quite all the way. It's a little over half.
Well, there's a problem with just that number, because we did our own polling, and what our polling has shown, that the majority of the Canadians that we polled said, you know, that they would rather see this government focus on making their lives more affordable. And they're concerned about cuts to public services because 64% of them believe that they're already strained.
Right, but the public service did get large, particularly during the pandemic, and the government's point is this is bringing it back to a size that is more manageable, given that taxpayers are paying for the public service. We want to bring back David, just to go over some of the points there that you flew through the first time.
Sure.
Let's go back to some of the spending measures in terms of how the government plans to attract capital investment and where they think that's going to come from.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things here, Rosie. There's about $280 billion in capital investments that they outline here. Some of this is carryover of measures like accelerated write-off of equipment purchases, computer upgrades that Chrystia Freeland had in her fall economic statement of December 16th, 2024, which got overshadowed by something else she wrote that day, being her resignation letter. But there is some expansion on that, and this is on the tax side. And Peter Armstrong will be here to get really deep into this later. But they are giving immediate expensing for manufacturing and processing buildings. So essentially, if you're getting into the critical minerals game, if you're getting into the extraction game and you need to build a building for processing, or if you need to retool, say, a car operation into a different type of operation, there's a tax incentive there that in a lot of cases will reduce the effective net tax on some of these things down to zero. There's also an accelerated capital cost allowance for low carbon liquefied natural gas facilities, which is interesting. In the first tranche of the major projects, you know, that is a key part of this whole economic plan from Mark Carney. There was some natural gas components to this. They're now having a lucrative tax incentive here for for low carbon natural gas. And the lower your emissions, the higher the credit you get. And it's not based on a benchmark. It's based on how my LNG plant competes with your LNG plant for lower emissions, and you qualify then for the incentive. But it's a key thing, and Peter will explain this a little bit more. But on the manufacturing and processing side, this ability to write off the buildings you need to build for business expansion and write off the equipment that you need inside of it right away, it has the effect of lowering what's called the meter, the marginal effective tax rate, for manufacturing and processing to 0.4%. It's 12% in the United States. This is a competitive advantage they're hoping to get for the hard-hit manufacturing sector, where we've lost 30,000 jobs as a country, as an incentive to keep operations in Canada and maybe expand into some of the Canadian-only opportunities.
Okay, let's dip back in, if we can, to the House of Commons, where the Finance Minister is delivering his speech on Budget 2025, and we'll come back and speak more with David.
And I know, although the Conservatives are silenced in their heart, they support that, Mr. Speaker. Because I know that they will take the break week to go around and tell their constituents how great we're going to see this country and all the investment we're going to see. Hear, hear. And I know in their heart I can see them.
Canada is one of the best places in the world to invest, and we are going to make it even better. This fiscal strength allows us to make historic investments, not only today, but also for future generations.
To Canadians who feel the strain of these times, our message is clear. We will not back down. We will be there for you now and for as long as it takes. We will do what Canadians do best in times of need. We look after one another. We help each other. That's the Canadian way. That's our way, Mr. Speaker.
That's the Canadian way.
Meeting this great challenge, Mr. Speaker, requires both ambition and discipline. We need to be ambitious in our investments and rigorous in our spending. And that's why this budget charts a new course for Canada's public finances. Because Canadians expect their government to achieve results. And to get there, we must spend
Okay, we are going to leave the Finance Minister as he continues his speech there inside the House of Commons. The Green Party leader, Elizabeth May, has already come out of the House to, of course, she represents one vote. One vote would matter if you're seeking for just 3 votes to get this budget passed, but she has already declared where she stands on the budget. Take a listen.
Oh, here we go.
Right now, would you vote no on the budget?
Absolutely. There's no way that we can, as Greens, vote yes on this budget. But I want to emphasize there are several days in which this budget can be negotiated and amended before it goes to a vote. And that's something that doesn't get discussed much. I am surprised that Mr. Carney has not reached out, or that more of his ministers haven't reached out to say, what would it take to get Greens to vote for this budget? In the same way I hear from friends in the New Democratic Party, they haven't felt that there's been an effort to get us on side early on. So we are now in a position where I think every vote's going to matter, every vote's going to count, and I would invite the Prime Minister, and I've sent this message through the officials who were with us in the lockup, please let them know I'd like to talk, because there's some things that could be done that would make it possible for us to vote for this budget.
Okay, so Elizabeth May, Green Party leader, of course the only Green seat inside this iteration of the House of Commons, saying that as things stand now, she cannot support this budget, but says she's willing to talk. She's willing to negotiate further. Let's just go back, David, through what is, I want to come to the infrastructure moment, but just in terms of what is there for climate and what would be, I guess, the biggest problem for Liz May would be probably ending the oil and gas emissions cap. But
she said
to your point,
that
they are
she would
moving
not
to
support a
strengthen the
budget that has
industrial
anything positive for
carbon
oil and
pricing
gas.
system. So I'm
granddaughter.
speculating as to what would upset her there
She
the
said that
most,
a couple days ago.
they're putting all their eggs, if it were, into industrial carbon pricing rather than the hard cap, which had been causing problems for so many people in Alberta.
It's an if-then scenario.
Right.
If the country can agree on develop a post-2030 carbon pricing trajectory, we can get to a point where you don't need the emissions cap. And this is something even champions of emissions reductions have said to the government, not to do an emissions cap because you're bringing regulation into what they want as a pricing and market-driven solution. So essentially the plan is the government's going to sit down with the provincial and territorial governments and setting up a multi-decade industrial carbon price trajectory. Long-term certainty heading towards the net zero target by 2050. This is what all at the Conference of Partners, COP, they agreed to, is to get to a net zero economy by 2050.
But this only happens, they'll only get rid of the cap if this happens.
So this needs to happen. They need to agree to a stronger benchmark and backstop in that if, I don't know, Ontario falls below it, the government moves immediately, puts it in and lets everybody know, no, we're coming in, we've all agreed to this, let's go.
Okay.
If they agree to that, if they agree to movement on methane emissions, movement on the clean electricity regulations, because there's a series of tax credits that were announced in earlier budgets that are now implemented in this one that will give you tax write-offs for investing in clean electricity sources, moving away from fossil fuels.
And we will build infrastructure in communities all across Canada with the new Build Communities Strong Fund, Mr. Speaker. As we build million more homes, we'll need infrastructure like roads to build new neighborhoods. This fund will help build that. New neighborhoods will lead to new communities across our country that will want recreational and athletic center. This fund will help build that. Wow. And the new communities will need new hospital. This fund will help build that. This fund will build Canada strong. This fund will build our community strong. This fund will build Canada strong, Mr. Speaker. And something I'm very proud of, and I think the Prime Minister would join me in that, we will do all this by being our own best customer to the new Buy Canadian policy. It's about time that we put Canadian suppliers first.
And by doing so, in this fashion, you are trying to bankrupt the country. So you can have the moment now, be proud, yeah, Canada's investing in itself, but at a cost, a very expensive cost.
It's all about good jobs. It's all about resilient communities in our cities and in rural communities across our nation. And this is about pride in what we build. Pride in Canada, pride in our workers. That's how you build a strong country. Mr. Speaker, Canada has a legacy of builders. We are a nation of builders. That same spirit of building at home has defined Canada for generations. We have done this before. Back in 1945, just after the war, Canada had to do big things. A so-called, at the time, Minister of Everything, the great CDL banked on the boundless potential of Canada to make big change in our country. He was not afraid to bet big on Canadians. Neither we are, Mr. Speaker, because we believe in Canada. This budget is guided by the strong conviction that Canada must remain a nation of builders, of infrastructure and of innovation, of trust in public institutions and hope for generations to come. This nation knows how to build. We built the Canadian Pacific Railway in 1885, allowing our country to be connected from coast to coast and supporting trade across the prairies. We built the St. Lawrence Seaway, more recently in 1959, creating a deep water route from the Great Lakes to the Atlantic Ocean.